Hello.
Hi,
Good evening.
good evening. Hi, Tony.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Bob.
Hey, do I still have your PowerPoint open, Tony? Do, I think. Yes, okay. So we're ready to rock and roll then.
Okay, is Patty on, Bob?
Is Patty on?
The chair,
Me and Karis.
Patty Karras.
Yeah,
Um, I do not see her. No, we're not going to start yet. We're still collecting people and,
Oh,
we all,
okay.
we have to exchange pleasantries and
Of course we do.
all that.
With your permission, Bob, I'd like Patty to begin and then turn it over to me because the school committee voted the budget last Tuesday, so it's actually their budget.
Okay,
Typical stuff. Nothing's changed in the years we've worked together. And I
Tony,
will look. Go ahead,
I
Barbara.
was gonna say, Tony, we have to tell you that we're sad that this is gonna be our last PowerPoint with you. They're always perfect.
Everybody's good at something. I happen to be, I focus on this. However, if you'd like to request the superintendent and the school committee to hire me to make a PowerPoint next year, I'd be happy to oblige.
Oh, we will remember that. Noted.
I'd like to hire you to make PowerPoints for some of
For
my folks.
me. Yes.
Bob, the one thing I do want you to know I have ready, I have some comparative data that's not in the PowerPoint that I did a research project. And if you want me to talk about it, I can. And then, of course, I can do I can type up a report next week and send it to you. But I did a comparative study on the audited cost of school districts like us. The last audit data was put up on January 18th by the department. I don't want to waste your time if you're not interested, though. That's why I didn't put it in my PowerPoint.
I am certainly interested.
Okay,
I bet Barbara's interested.
okay. Then towards the end of the PowerPoint, when I begin talking about the budget overview and comparisons, I'll talk for a few minutes about a variety of those details.
Okay, awesome. So far, we only have 1, 2, 3, 4
Right.
economists.
What's a
Well,
quorum for us? Do we need 5?
I believe a quorum is a majority plus 1 of the
Right.
committee membership. Right, so even though it's a 9-person committee, we only have 8 members, so a quorum would be a majority 4 plus 1, 5.
5. Yeah.
Right.
4 is the majority of 8.
Well,
Well, you know what I mean.
I think Tim, I'm with Tim. It's 5 either way.
Either way, it's 5. Yeah, and Patty is here too, so welcome.
and Deborah just came on too.
Which gives us our
Yeah.
our 5, no matter whose fingers and toes you're counting on.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you all?
Good.
We're well.
Everybody's damp and cold after today.
Very true, Tony. Very, very true.
This is the kind of night that Zoom is really nice. not having.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And the basement of town hall is always just so welcoming.
Right. Is anyone down there live tonight?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I hope not.
Oh, because
Patty and I
Tony,
were there last year.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do remember that.
Yeah, Bob told me that it was just Zoom.
Yeah,
Oh.
it is.
Okay.
So who do we have? Tony has joined us. Deborah has joined us. There's a Rob Lebo, who I don't know.
Hi,
This is
Rob.
this is also State of the Evening, or State of the Union evening. Sorry, that makes more sense. But that will be on so many instant replays and so many analysis that you'll be sick of hearing about it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it's just theater anyway.
yeah. I don't like to watch it.
No, I'm with you, Deborah, especially in the last few years where they actually taunt the speaker.
Oh, yes.
Right.
When MTG and Lauren Boebert got up there at each other, trying to say who could be the best heckler. Oh, I'm sorry, but it was not the show I was looking for.
Does this mean I can't heckle Tony when he speaks?
Oh no, I'm from New Jersey. You can do anything you want.
Where in Jersey?
Vineland.
Oh my gosh. I know where that is. That's
Well,
wow.
my guess you're in a minority in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
I have no idea where that is, Tony.
But Tony, that's a famous place because the Vineland School was there.
That's correct.
And that's famous in the history of IQ testing.
That's correct.
The first place that it was used in the United States was at the Vineland
right.
School. And
Wow.
so it was a very big deal. It also was very controversial.
Yes.
There was some not so great stuff that, like eugenics kind of stuff, came out of there too.
That's right. And the treatment of disabled youth and young adults initially was erratic.
That's a nice word for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there were some very wealthy residents whose parents gave in those days, I believe it was called the Vineland State School
Yes,
originally.
it was. Yep.
And there was some children were treated very nicely. They have individual residences, and the treatment in the different residences were different. Now it's a world-class facility.
Oh, it still exists.
Yes, it does.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to mention that because it comes up, in the history of education, it comes up all the time because it
Yes.
was interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, if you drew a straight line between Philadelphia and Atlantic City, Vineland would be halfway. Way down.
Way down.
Yeah,
South of the
actually, Southern sympathizers during the Civil War. They're actually parallel, latitudinally, they're parallel with Maryland. Or I was.
And I don't know whether this is true. It's tomato country down there. And I
Oh,
always
God.
that Vineland referred to tomato vines, but
Oh, did it?
Yes. Actually, initially it was grapes. Charles Landis visited Concord, Massachusetts, and took grapevines. And then, but tomatoes grew so well. Yeah, the Rutgers red tomatoes are very famous. They're the ones that look like boats. The center goes in.
Oh,
okay.
Interesting.
No, not really. It's just you're just talking.
No, I was just gonna say I had no idea.
Okay, last fact. Before transportation became more prevalent, easy transportation with the superhighways, etc., Vineland was the egg capital of the world.
Egg?
Egg. And you can still drive around the outskirts of the city and see derelict egg coops, chicken coops.
No
These
foxes
facts were-
anymore? No foxes?
No, no,
And that must have just moved across the Delaware Bay into Delaware, which is where Purdue
yeah.
is huge.
Oh,
And now, of course, they're in the Midwest in these gigantic buildings that are, I mean, they're the size of airplane hangars.
Yeah.
With a lot of child labor. They're using a lot of child labor, not good.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Illegally. On the night shifts.
So
All right. So let's call this to order. I think we've collected all of those that we're going to collect. So who
Oh,
Who is-
minutes. Yeah.
who is our minutes
that was
taker for
Dan.
tonight?
I'll take the minutes.
Oh,
Okay.
Thank
I mean,
you.
all right. So Joy gets the pass. We had previously established the rule that said the last one to join the meeting is the minute taker for the evening.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I have a really bad case of tinnitus and my hearing's not so good, so I'm happy Melanie's doing it.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you. We have a volunteer, which trumps the
No worries. I
constraint.
thought we were all taking turns, so.
we are.
Yeah.
So it
All
makes
right, anyway, so it is, what is it? It is 6:37 now. We have a quorum, so present from the Finance Committee are Bob Vanderslice, Barbara Beatty, Joy Doherty, Tim Bell, who has been very quiet through all of this, Deborah Warren, and Melanie Drayton. We are joined by Tony, the Superintendent of Schools, I believe that's your correct title.
Yep.
Another Tony, the town administrator, Allison, the town accountant, and several members of the school committee. I'm assuming Rob is one, as is Patty.
Rob is a candidate for the superintendent position, and
Oh.
I am the chair of the school committee.
Okay, all right, excellent. So our first order of business is the school committee and the school budget. So I'm just
Wait, wait. Don't we have to approve minutes?
Well, I was gonna let school committee
Oh,
go
Yeah.
first,
Yeah,
rather
we can
than,
do that afterwards. Thanks,
Yeah.
sorry.
is that okay?
Yep, of course.
Okay, so Patty, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, everybody. For those that don't know me, my name is Patty Karras, and I'm the chair of the school committee. At the meeting that we held on February 27th, the school committee unanimously approved the fiscal year 25 budget. And our wonderful superintendent, Tony, will be presenting the budget this evening, and we're both available to answer any questions that you may have. So with that, I turn it over to Tony.
thank you, Patty. And Bob, if you want to put up that first slide, share your screen, we can rock and roll.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Technical difficulties already. Here we go.
yeah.
There it is. I can see it. Can everyone else?
yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So Bob, we can move forward. For the convenience of the Finance Committee, I have listed the members of the school committee. And obviously, Patty is the chair and is joining me tonight. Thank you, Patty. And as Patty said, on the 27th of February, the school committee unanimously approved the budget that I'm going to explain this evening. So the increase in the budget is an increase of $190,157. I will fine tune these numbers as I go through, give you percentages, etc. Historically, we have always divided the budget into three segments. The money spent within the confines of Johnson School, district funds, and town funds. And as we go through, I will explain each of those and what they're made up of. The factors that represent the $190,157 increase are significant cost increases for supplies, services, and materials. All salary increases for all employees of the district are included. The CBAs is in place. This is the contracts for the NTA Unit A and B. Next year will be their third year, so the new superintendent and school committee will have to negotiate a successor agreement. The Unit A, the teachers, all licensed educators, are getting a 2.5% increase. Unit B, who are the paraprofessionals, are getting a 5% increase. So that warrants an explanation. When this contract was being negotiated in the Commonwealth, there was a significant pressure by the two statewide unions to improve the salary levels of paraprofessionals. We decided that rather than giving the paraprofessionals the kinds of increases that others were giving, 10, 15%, etc., that because of we have a very small budget, obviously, it would be better if we did a step process. So we have increased the paraprofessional Unit B salaries by 3%, 4%, and 5% this year. So that got them the raise that everyone basically was giving paraprofessionals without shocking the budget. We have very few paraprofessionals, so even though you're looking at a 5% number, in real dollars, we're not talking about $10,000. We have next year, we will have one additional teacher assigned to sixth grade. I'm sure you remember that last year we only had 5 fifth graders going into the current sixth grade year. The school committee decided to let them go to these middle school 1 year early. We will not be doing that again. By the way, if you remember, that cost was spread out in the life of the contract with Swampscott. And I will detail that later in the discussion. Educational materials and supplies are going up just like everything else. Luckily, the school committee was brilliant in their negotiations with Swampscott. We negotiated a 5-year contract for a 2.5% increase per year. At the time, that looked reasonable for both sides. Right now, it looks like that was the deal of the century for us.
And where are we in the life of that?
That will be through 2027.
Okay, so we're 2 years in. 2 years?
Yes.
2 years in. Okay.
Years in.
And then on top of that, because of the sixth grade moving over 1 year early, because the contract calls for 7 through 12, there would be a $20,000 increase per year. So if you look at the increase in the Swampscott costs on the line item, you will see that it's not really 2.5, it's 2.5 plus 20. The Essex North Shore technical school tuition is going to go up, and that's based on numbers. And I've been in contact with the town accountant. She is fully aware of that. Special education tuitions, I'll talk about later. They're going up, and transportation's going up. Testing materials, building costs, technology licenses, and we need to begin to improve our teachers' desktop replacements. And I'll talk about more about each of those later in the presentation. Ready, Bob?
Wait, I'm clicking like mad and it's not doing it. There we go.
Okay. So, this is a slide you haven't seen before. This is an unusual year. We have all of those things that I just detailed that would be driving the cost up. When I started this budget process in November, the increase was 11%. Obviously, that's not tenable. And I wanted you to see where the increase is coming from. The one additional teacher budgeted at a master's 2 level is 61,355. That's 1.5% of the total increase. The Essex Tech tuition is going up 62,000. That's 1.3%. The Swampscott tuition increase plus the 20,000 for the 6th grade is going up $62,000 or 1.3, and the out-of-district tuitions are going up 15,000. Actually, our out-of-school tuitions are going up 10 to 15 times that much. But what I've been able to do is reduce that increase by targeting grants and by targeting circuit breaker money and a special grant that I applied for. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts approved a 14% increase in out-of-district private special education schools last year. The superintendents of the state basically went berserk. So what the Commonwealth did is they put a special fund together of $75 million to help the districts cover that huge increase. And about 5 weeks ago, I applied for $180,000 of that money. I don't know if we're going to get it, but I'm pretty confident we will. The real strength of this slide is for the members of the FinCom to understand that the total increase of $190,000 is actually less than these 4 items increase. And again, I've offset that with revenue from different sources.
Okay. So Tony, are you going to pick these apart further down in
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'll hold questions until.
Okay, this was just to show you that fact that these 4 costs are going up 4.5%, but the total budget's only going up 4.17. So because I was able to offset it. Okay, go ahead, Bob. Okay, so this is the Johnson School budget changes. The total budget's going up $44,000, which represents 23.2% of the $190,000 increase. Salary increases, as I mentioned, are in there. The additional 6th grade teacher. We will have 2 sections of 1st grade and 4th grade and 1 section of kindergarten, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and 6th for a net increase of 1 classroom teacher, which is the $61,000 that I showed you. Educational materials and supplies are going up. We need a new writing program. The assessment licenses and technology licenses, and as I began to talk to you about previously, our teachers have desktops that were 2012 and 2014 models. In terms of technology, they are dinosaurs. What we're going to do, however, is replace the brains of the computers, which will sit outside the computer, and reuse the monitors, which are perfect. And that will save us about $700 per unit. So we will have a new small unit. You know, in 2012, 2014, when our units are self-contained. They are very similar to the modern units, except that the modern units are about 1/3 the thickness. The devices that will be the brains of the new computers are about the size of 2 packages of cigars. They're very tiny, and they'll sit on the desk. The line will go into that. There will be line going from that to the current computer, and the monitor will be used. And as I said, that will take the cost from about $1,300 to $1,500 and bring it down to about $5 to $6, which is, and I have to commend our principal and our technology director for figuring all that out.
Awesome. Okay.
Bob,
Well, is this the time to stop
ahead.
for questions? So
anytime.
all right, I don't understand that the sixth grade teacher. I thought I heard that the sixth grade was going over to Swampscott.
Okay, in fiscal year 24, the current year, the 5 6th graders are over there. In fiscal 25, which is the budget I'm presenting, the current 5th graders will stay. So we are, and the reason we're going to be paying for this year's 6th graders for several years was to reduce the impact. So right now, Johnson Elementary School is a pre-K 5 building. Next year, fiscal 25, 2024-25 calendar years, it will be a pre-K 6th grade building again.
So how many sixth graders are at Swampscott right now?
5.
5.
And we're paying for that over the course of 3 years at $20,000 a year. Is that right?
Approximately, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And I did research, and I know what their per pupil is, so I'll tell you that later. It's in line. Obviously, that was negotiated, but it's in line with their per pupil cost.
Okay, and
Bob, did I make that clear, Bob?
Yep. So essentially, we're becoming a K through 6. We need a sixth grade teacher, obviously, to teach sixth graders.
That's right.
And we will continue to see a charge from Swampscott for a couple of more years because that is done sort of pro rata over what, 3 years, I think you said?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
if we didn't do that, we would have had to give them $100,000. And, in our budget, that's a lot of money.
Hmm.
So my 20 by 3 years was pretty far off, it sounds like. Because you just said 100, I was thinking 60.
Yeah, well, we gave them 20 this year, and then the contract will go 25, 26, 27. I can give you the exact figures. I'm ballparking that.
It's about 85,
Thank you, Patty.
84, something, but round up to 85.
Yeah, in 4 years, because we paid this year. Right? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, and the technology that the teachers stuff, is it Apple or is it
Yes.
all Apple? Okay.
Yeah, Apple has a small exterior unit now that takes the place of the hardware inside their flat screen computers. And rather than buying a monitor, which, obviously our monitors work perfectly. They're really good ones. This makes a lot more sense. And we will do that over time. They all won't be replaced immediately. They will be replaced. I'm guessing the principal and the superintendent will decide to do it over a 2-3 year span.
Okay.
Because some of those computers, remember, we have specialists who only work 1 day a week.
Hmm.
So obviously we'll take care of the classroom teachers first, who are there every day.
How much of what they're doing is in the cloud and how much of it is resident local on the machine?
That's shifting to the cloud dramatically. We can't put our student records up there because they're confidential.
Mhm.
And we don't have control. You have to have control of the security of any health and educational records. But in terms of the material they use in the classroom, a lot of it's in the cloud.
Right, which sort of reduces the need for a lot of firepower
Yes.
on the desktop. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, we're more interested in speed than storage, obviously.
Yeah. And that's driven more by your pipeline than anything else.
Yeah, which we have improved over the last 4 years. We're in pretty good shape.
Okay, good.
Actually, we improved the entire pipeline because we improved our camera systems. And as you know, visuals take a lot of require a lot of pipeline.
Yep.
Okay, so the
Okay.
next slide is our district changes. The district budget is very simple. It's the tuition to Swampscott, it's the superintendent and school committee's office, and it's out of district tuition to our Essex Technical School. But even though it's only 3 lines, it represents 42% of the $190,000 increase. The first and third of these is completely uncontrollable. The town has to pay for students who go to Essex Tech. It's very simple. And that number is growing. We have 14 students there this year, 4 of whom are seniors, and we have 4 freshmen. So if that stays the same, then there won't be any increase next year other than the increase in the per pupil. If 5 students go in the freshman year, that will go up the per pupil plus the cost of 1 student. Obviously, if 3 students go, that will cover the per pupil plus.
Tony?
Yes,
Are we seeing an increase in the number of students in general going to Essex Tech?
yes.
I would
When I-
expect that because of
Yeah.
all the STEAM stuff, right?
Yep. Well, if you remember, Essex Tech built a magnificent building that opened 4 years ago. If you haven't seen it, it is amazing. And they are one of the 5 agricultural technical schools in the state. So they're not only a technical school, but it's an agricultural school. So they not only have all of the typical technical programs, but they also have farming and animal husbandry, I believe it's called, taking care of animals, large animals and small animals.
And
So
with what's happening these days with colleges, where a lot of people are questioning high tuitions, return on investment for jobs afterwards, et cetera, the technical schools are, to a lot of people, seem to be making a lot more sense. So I'm expecting that's going to keep growing, don't you?
I would think it's quite a distance away. The transportation to and from Essex, it's not comfortable. I think that's going to keep the number down. I believe when I got here 8 years ago, the number was 7. So it's basically doubled. There are some school districts that have hundreds of students in technical schools. Obviously they're larger districts. But I would not, it is my opinion that that number isn't going to shrink very much over the years. Let's put it that way.
So
And I'm
about
glad
how
to
much
hear that
more,
they do agricultural too. That's great.
about how much more is it when a student opts for the agricultural school over Swampscott? How much is our net increase?
Tim, it's developed with a different process. The town, there's a line in my budget for Essex. and there's a line for Swampscott. If more
Right.
kids go to Essex, the Swampscott line doesn't go down because for the last two contracts, the Swampscott cost was not based on student enrollment. Right now, the student enrollment at Swampscott is at a low ebb, but we have ever increasing numbers of students in our elementary school. So that decision by the administration and school committee will pay dividends down the road.
So I'll ask the question a different way. It sounds like we are at the population minimum for Swampscott, the population minimum fee. But once we get above the population minimum fee, I'll re-ask my question. How much more is it to send somebody to Essex versus Swampscott?
There's no cap to the number of kids we can send to Swampscott. It's
And
not-
there's no per pupil fee?
No. It's based on a number that was developed about 7 years ago. And then a 2.5% increase per year.
So it's a zero marginal cost per student.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Bob, town changes. Once again, the town line items are very simple. It's the out of district transportation. It's the general ed transportation and it's Essex. And those increases based on the large Essex tuition increase is 34.4% of the $190,000 increase. Now, we belong to the STEAM Collaborative for transportation, for general education transportation. That contract for next year is an unknown. I would imagine that you can estimate that the transportation companies are demanding a significant increase. So all I have, excuse me, that's the out of district transportation. The out of district transportation is from the SEAM Collaborative. We are in with about 15 other school districts that initially dropped our cost, but we just don't know what those costs are going to be. Now, we don't have a lot of kids going out of district, and we always offer the parents the opportunity to transport them, and that's dramatically cheaper and, in my opinion, better than a bus. And any increase there will have to be covered by the circuit breaker or other grants. The general education transportation, next year we will be in the first year of 3 with no increase. And that was something we negotiated, a multiple year contract, and our general ed transportation contract with the Hilly Bus Company won't be going up. However, I do want to explain that there's a $2,464 increase in that contract because the Swampscott schools changed their schedule and our late bus wasn't at Swampscott Middle School and High School when the kids could get on it. So we were paying for a bus and the kids couldn't use it. So I negotiated a $2,400 a year increase in the general ed transportation, and now the late bus is staying later. Obviously, there was more labor costs for the bus company, but that was a good deal. We actually split it. They initially wanted basically $5,000, and we split the increase. Okay, Bob. So the overview, the Johnson School, and this is 2 years of our increase this year is 2.4%. The increase in district is 3.5. The increase, that subtotal of those two is 3.1. The increase in the town portion is 4.1, is 13, which comes out to a total increase of 4.17. And each of the increases has the actual dollar amounts for you. Now I want to spend a little time on comparisons. Tim was asking about the per student in Swampscott. I do want to tell you, I'm never comfortable using non-audited numbers because they change. So the numbers that I'm talking to you about tonight were actually posted on the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education website on January 18th, 2024. They represent fiscal year 23 numbers. Not this year, last year. So the Swampscott spends approximately $19,198 per student within the district. We spend in 2023, fiscal 23, we spent $16,473. However, the Swampscott number, think about it for a minute, gets reduced because we sent them $1.6 million. So their average student is really 18.4, still higher than ours.
Tony, am I on the right slide?
None of this is on a slide.
Oh, okay.
This is what I was talking about earlier. I did a research project. I'd be happy to put this all in writing for you. This is just to give you an idea that we're doing well financially in terms of the cost that we're spending per pupil. So one of the things that's always interesting is, how do we stack up against other small districts that just have elementary districts and have to pay students to go to a regional school district or another school district for middle school and high school? So I looked up 6 districts, and I'll read them first. And I'm not going to give you all the numbers. I'm just going to give you the closest one to us. Sunderland, Rowe, Conway, Eastham, Truro, and Wellfleet. Each of those districts has a local elementary school and then sends their students somewhere else for with a different budget number for middle school and high school. And the lowest number of those districts for in-district costs in fiscal 23 was Sunderland, which spent $23,800 per student, as compared to our 16.4. We're working very efficiently. I also
Tony,
have
the other question,
Sure.
sorry, on the summary sheet that Bob has up, so the overall cost is up 4% for next year. And what is the student count? Is the student count flat, up, or down for next year?
Our student count next year will be up. It will be
Oh.
up 15 students.
Wow, that's a lot.
For 2 reasons. Number one, we'll have the 6th grade. We'll retain them. That's 8. Actually, it's up 8.
You were
it's
saying
up
Johnson Schools cost? I was talking about total student cost. It's
The
total
to-
student population, not just
total
Johnson School.
Yeah, so am I.
Okay.
Our kindergarten will add 20 students. We will retain our 6th grade. That's 8, because the 6th graders are in Swampscott this year. And I know 3 students may be leaving, so that's a net increase of approximately 23, 24, 25.
No, I was not clear in the way I'm asking the question. Looking at the total student population, including Johnson School, SPED, Swampscott, Essex, all of our students, because that's what's in this budget, that's 4.7 million.
Yes,
So that total count, is that up or down next year?
up. That's up.
But not up by 15 or 20.
It's up at least 15. Because
Wow, okay, that's a
our
lot.
freshman class going into Somerville, going into Swampscott High School is as large as the senior class. You know, we had a dip for about 4 or 5 years. COVID was one of the factors, and now we're definitely on a build. I expect more students to be covered in this budget every year for the foreseeable future, Tim.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking is I can imagine somebody say, well, a 4% increase is a lot, but if our student population is increasing 3%, then approximately our cost per student is only up 1%.
That's a good way of saying it.
Yeah, the classic
Yeah.
cost accounting way of looking at it is how much of that is a volume change, meaning the change in the number of pupils, and how much of that is a cost change.
Right. Yeah, that's the one thing that the per pupil doesn't take into consideration, Tim. This year we have a $62,000 cost because we have to add a teacher. But typically, if we added 2 or 3 kids to every grade level in elementary school, there wouldn't be a per pupil cost increase because we're already paying for the teachers. There would be a supply and material increase, but not a labor increase.
My analysis is that 60 some odd $1,000 teacher is replacing the 85,000 that we paid Swampscott for not having a teacher.
That's correct.
And
Yeah, we would have had to add this teacher last year, Tim, because we needed 2 kindergarten classes. See, we have 2 classes with 2 teachers. Before last year, we only had 1.
Yep.
So you're absolutely right.
Tony, what's your class size going through?
The class size ranges between 23 and 8. And we have 2 teachers in kindergarten next year, and they will have a class size of 12 or 13. And then we have at least 16 in every other class. Yeah, as I said, the dip is over. With this year's 5th grade, next year's 6th grade, the small classes are above us.
Yeah, good to hear.
Yeah.
And that's nice class size. I mean, I actually know some research on ratios and class size and what you need to get, higher achievement. And 14 to 16 in there, that's a very good class size for achievement coming out. So if you relate numbers to scores, which isn't the only thing we should be looking at all, but those are nice numbers, and they're very good numbers for the for the achievement, which is what we want.
Absolutely. And we have 33 preschool students. Now, they all won't be going to kindergarten next year because some of them are only 4 years old. But that's where the kindergarten class is coming from next year of 20, from those 33. And so when the 20 kindergartners move up, that'll probably leave somewhere around 10 to 13 preschool kids, and that'll be filled in by the kids who are now 3 and 4 years old, who are too young to go this year. So the system is working pretty well. The future of the school population, Tim, since you talked about it, this year we have 116 kids at Johnson School. Next year we will have approximately 133, and the year after that approximately 149, and that 150 number will probably be exceeded or be stable in 26, 27. And the reason that's happening is next year we are adding the sixth grade, and we have and there obviously we have a large number of students, and the following year the same thing will happen. So I did work that out. Yeah, the unknown is Essex. And, you know, every town is dealing with this, every small town. It's just an unknown quantity. You know, we cannot control where parents choose to send their children. And even though we have a really good deal for us in Swampscott, so let me give you an example. We're paying approximately in the audited year, which is fiscal 23, we're paying $1,607,136 was the contract. We had 101 students there, which means that we paid $15,912.23 for each one of those kids. That year, the average cost in Swampscott was $20,000. Excuse me, $19,000, and if you take our money off, $18,400. So we really don't have a complaint. Now the bad news, and it's very simple. And this is not about the fiscal 25 budget, it's about this year's budget. We have a student who was a high school student 2.5 years ago who required residential placement. That student went to residential placement in March of 2023. So this month will mark 12 months for that student. The cost of that education is over $20,000 a month, 12 months a year. I am pretty confident that I can cover it with the grants I've applied for and other ways of moving money around from our revolving accounts. But I want the finance committee to know that that's out there. I'm optimistic that the student will graduate high school sometime this spring, hopefully in June, so that it won't be a factor in fiscal 25, but I can't guarantee that. So I didn't want that to be a surprise. Bob, if I'm not mistaken, I talked about this student last year.
I do remember.
And I was looking for alternatives at the time, and obviously I can't. Let me restate that because that's inappropriate what I just said. The special education director was looking for alternatives. I can't be involved. So we're so far so good, but I do want you to know at the end of this fiscal year that I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to cover everything.
How long does our obligation last? Is it May of turning 18? Is it older?
Our obligation for a student lasts until their 22nd birthday. Now, this student is academically strong. Therefore, they will graduate high school probably with the class this June.
Okay. So it's,
We do have a 21-year-old student that we're paying for that will end in November of 24, when that student has their 22nd birthday.
Yeah.
And
So
at
it's
the present
22nd.
time, that student is going to Salem State in a special program.
22nd birthday or graduates from high school, whichever
Correct.
happens first.
Yeah, and
Do
you
you,
know, depending upon the disability, some students who have special education services are extremely good students. Some who have those services are disabled, significantly disabled.
okay. Do you have a contingency built into this budget?
Yes. The contingency is the grants I applied for 5 weeks ago that I'm labeling as $184,000 worth of extra funding from the state. But
Okay.
there's no contingency built into the bottom line on the fiscal 25 budget. Because as I said, the most costly student, almost guaranteed won't be here during fiscal 25.
Tony, are the grants that you have sought this year, are they fairly similar from year to year? The same grants being available?
Deborah, that's a great question. 2 of the 3 arms of the grant are, one is called the circuit breaker. The way that works, and to stop me if I'm getting too detailed, there's a number that the state says the local district will pay. This year is around $47,000 for a special education student. Anything above that cost, they reimburse the district at approximately somewhere between 60 and 75% of the anything over 47,000. That's called circuit breaker. There's another thing that I applied for where if your costs go up more than 25% in a year, you're eligible for a second arm of the circuit breaker
Excuse me, which costs are those? If you're
for special education
Oh,
students.
special education, all right.
And it's not one student. The circuit breaker is based on each student. This number is based on the total expenditures.
Mm.
And because we have a $20,000 a month student, we're way over the 1.25 of last year. So we'll get some money there. Then there's that special money because the state approved an increase of 14% in private out of district tuitions, that the legislature put that $75 million away. We've applied for that too.
Okay. Is that a
So
one-time,
that's a onesie. Yep.
so this will come home to roost next year?
Maybe. I don't know. It depends on, Bob, if the student who costs $20,000 a month graduates, then next year will be well within the confines of this budget to be able to pay for. I also want to remind you that in the last 2 years, I have returned significant amounts of money to the free cash.
Yes.
Last year it was $162,186.81. So there is some some contingency built into this budget. Much, much less than in a typical year for me.
The real reason I was asking is when we start to look at our own reserve fund,
Yep.
you know, I want to know whether we have to sort of apportion some of that to school activities as well as just to general government activities. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll talk to Tony Barletto, but generally speaking, I don't like municipal reserves to be spent on schools because it can become a habit.
Mhm.
And it's not a good habit. The town has plenty of ways that it needs to identify cost for the reserve funds.
Yep.
You know, typically, as you know, I've been around, and our special education costs, even this year with some dramatic increases by percentage, are well within and lower than the average. By the way, I thought you would also be interested in the average student in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in fiscal 23, that's 22, 23. The state average expenditure was $20,133.67. Now, that also includes high school students and middle school who are typically a little bit more expensive because of the added activities. But as you can see, that year, our 16,473 was a very efficient use of the taxpayers' money.
Yep.
Tony, does that average state cost include the special education students? Or is it just regular education?
I think it's everything.
Okay. Because as I'm sure we all know, for instance, the difference between, say, Lynn and Swampscott in terms of the number of students who are going to be needing special education, those are big differences. So I was wondering how, what the base is for those numbers.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I just checked. Yeah, it's 901,000 students, and then yes, that includes 100% of the students. Just like our budget consists of 100% of the costs, including special education.
Right.
The thing that may be missing is the revenue streams to help us pay for them. Just like I spoke about the average cost in fiscal 23 in Swampscott being 19,198, but then we give them $1.6 million that year, so their average cost really was 18,400. So the same thing happens to every district. If we get that $184,000 to help pay our special education, even though the money goes out, it comes in, it's offset. So it's not a net. And basically that's where the amount of money that our district is able to provide for free cash comes from. I'll give you a concrete example. I budget the cost for the special education director, and if I have enough money at the end of the year, I pay for that out of the special education grant that comes from the state. And that money becomes free cash.
Yeah.
Obviously, this year, I'm going to be using that money to probably pay that tuition. So, hopefully that 184 comes in and we're all happy.
Yeah. Have we or anybody else done an analysis of just true cost, meaning cost without the offsets, without the grants? Just I want to know the real true cost of running an education program.
I don't have it, Bob, but I know it's significantly lower than the per pupil cost, because there are thousands of pupils that their average cost is much higher. And there are hundreds of thousands of pupils in the state that their average cost is lower.
Right. I mean, you've
But-
got the Westons and Dovers, which are the
Right.
highest.
I'm
And
not
then-
following that one at all.
But the other issue, Bob, and Tony knows this, is that it's extremely difficult to calculate real per pupil costs, because in districts with more than one school, they average it, right?
Yes,
And some of those schools are getting a lot more money than other schools. And so it's extremely, it's very difficult. It's very complicated.
I guess
Yeah,
Wouldn't it be as
I think-
easy
I'm not-
at? Sorry.
I'm sorry, what,
wouldn't-
Tim?
Wouldn't it be as easy as taking the total school cost, add the total grants and subsidies, and then divide that by the total number of students?
It would be if those grants and subsidies went to all students equally, but they don't.
No, it doesn't matter whether they're going
Doesn't
to all
matter.
students.
Oh,
So,
sure it does.
for example, in our case, that 184,000, if we get it in, that was another funding mechanism, and we would add that to our tax funded costs. And
No.
it's all of our tax funding source, all of our grant funding source is all of the total costs, and divided by the total number of students in our district.
That would give you a number. However, the number would, in my opinion, do two things. One, because we don't pay it per pupil for Swampscott, it every year would change simply because of the number of kids we send there, but the money doesn't change. It goes up 2.5% a year. So I'm not sure that would be a
This is
valuable
an
number.
informational, this is only an informational that I think was addressing Bob's question.
Yeah, I get it. And here's the big reason that I don't like to do that. There in the history of education, there have been what I would call general education versus special education wars. And the next question is going to be, Tim, if I do what you ask, is, well, how much does a regular education kid cost versus a special education kid?
Mhm.
And I have told, in my experience, which by the way is 57 years in the business, I have refused to answer that question because I don't see any good coming from it.
I was
But
just
it's a
trying
re-
to address Bob's question.
Yeah, no, I know. And it's a great question. I mean, I can do it if you want it, but
Well, yeah, I'm not sure how much good it does in a
Right.
vacuum.
that's right. And if we're the only district doing that, then we can't compare it to anything.
Right.
The state does not do that. And the other thing that happens is every year those grants and those offsets change. There
Yeah.
are grants that are in effect some years and are not in effect, like that $75 million.
Yeah, and that's exactly the reason I'm curious about this is,
Yeah,
you know, what's the true cost of running education? You know, and some districts are going to be better at getting offset money than others, and
yep.
until you drive down to that. All right, sorry.
No,
This is-
when I use the data that the district that the department audits, and I compare us to other districts like us, we're in really, really good shape. Let me give you an example. We have 168.2 students at the Johnson School that they're charging, that they're in the calculation. I have no idea where that comes from. And our cost in 2023 was $16,473. The town of Eastham had 190 students in their calculation, and their average cost was $26,663. Again, you know, I'm no mathematician, so however they're doing it, that's how I've always looked at it. When you compare, try to do apples and apples if you can.
Mhm.
But it's hard. You know, Bob's right. It's really difficult to do. And then some, you know, some districts, I mean, Truro spends $44,000 a student.
What?
Yep. That's what's on the website. 113.6 students, $44,753 per student.
And one hopes their results are significantly better than.
You know, we haven't talked about results, but we got a special education audit. We got the results in January. Out of 20 possible quality points, we got 20, 100%. Our general education MCAS scores are in the 70th percentile. We're doing very, very well academically. Our staff is doing a great job, and our principal.
Excellent. Excellent. This will be a subject change, but one thing we haven't touched on is any infrastructure improvements, needs, and then looking forward as well.
The Johnson School is in dramatically improved condition. The history of it is it was renovated in 2007, and basically very little was done. I'm going to say till my third year here. You know, the first couple of years I was kind of getting my feet wet, you know, kind of looking around, you know, what we needed. And upgraded with one exception, and that's the gymnasium roof. The gymnasium roof has 3 layers of roofing. Last year, I had a company come out and do a core sample. The top roof, is in terrible condition. It looks awful, but it's not leaking at all. There's not one drop getting through. So long term, something has to be done. I'm having a company come in, and there's a new process by which they spray a coating on a roof, and it supposedly makes it waterproof for 5 years. Like I said, ours is waterproof now, but I don't know where if water is going through the first roof and is trapped between the, the guy who did the core said that there's no leakage. So I'm assuming he was right. He only cored one spot though.
Mm.
If we can spray a coating on that roof, the material with the company that does it says it can be done 3 times. So that's 15 years. The problem, Bob, is that roof is going to be a monster. I spoke with our building inspector this time last year. If we tore the 3 layers of roof off, which is the way to do it, we would have to upgrade the insulation to current standards and code.
Yeah.
And we're probably talking in the $300,000 to $400,000 range. That's the only thing that I haven't addressed since I've been here.
Okay. And this year's budget does not include even the spraying option.
No, the spraying is very inexpensive.
Has the spraying been out there for long enough to know that it's cost effective?
It's very cost effective. It's very cheap, actually. Whether it works or not is a different question, Deborah. It's about 2.5 years old, 3 years old. I do have some questions about it, but I think many of you know in one of my prior lives, I was a general contractor, so I'll go very carefully.
Okay. And approximately how much?
I haven't gotten the price because I haven't asked for the quote, but it's in the $15,000 to $20,000 range, I believe.
Okay.
Once again, I want to reiterate and make sure you hear there's no leaks whatsoever. The porch roof connected to the gym did leak, and that's been replaced.
Good.
Hey, Bob, it's Peter. I've been
Yeah.
lurking in the background. I've had some some connectivity issues over the last hour, but I've been in and out. I don't know if this was answered. I don't know even if it was asked. Many years ago, I sat on the school committee, and at that time, the state of Massachusetts, for whatever reason, did not give Nahant the full funding that it gives every other town. And I'm wondering if there has ever been a change to that. Evidently, the thought process was that the town of Nahant, along with there was a handful of others. I don't know if I'm trying to remember if Swampscott was one of the other towns, but there was a handful of towns that did not receive their full, I don't know, 17% funding or whatever direct funding from the state for education. And they took our extra percentages and gave it to municipalities down on the Cape that had a lot of elderly residents. So I don't know if we know this or not, but I'm curious. I know at the time I was on the school committee that difference in monies, I want to say was somewhere in the neighborhood between 25 and 50,000 a year.
That's a good question, Peter. I am of the opinion that that was before the grandfathering clause for reimbursement from the state went into effect. Somewhere in the late 90s, the state realized that districts were losing students, other districts were gaining students, and they drew a line in the sand and they said, these are the numbers we're going to use as the low number for reimbursement. And then every year they add a certain amount of money. Typically in the last few years, it's been $30 per pupil. And I am not aware of any penalties or reductions for any districts. So what the state has said was, if you were a school district with 1,000 students in this year and you shrunk down to 800, you still got state aid for 1,000 students. But if you were 1,000 student district in that year and you went up to 1,200, we gave you state aid for 1,200. And what they were recognizing is what we talked about before with the committee. You know, a change of a classroom of, you have 50 classrooms and 2 students in each classroom leave. That's 100. That's a lot of kids. It doesn't change your costs at all. You still have an art teacher. You still have a bus. You still have, right. They finally recognized this. I think you may be talking about a time before that.
Well, I don't think I was on the school committee in the 90s, but I could have been.
If you were a very young man.
Well, no, actually not. No, I moved into town in 94 and I don't know, it may be late 90s, but nonetheless, I mean, at least where it sounds like they've corrected whatever that was,
Yes.
and
I'll check with Allison, Peter, but I'm not aware of any penalty for small districts or
okay,
or what, like somebody mentioned Wellesley, they get, they get what everybody else gets. There are certain things that are based on the amount of money that the state perceives that a town can expend. For example, help with buildings. That is all based on wealth. But
SBA,
and
right?
yeah, I see Allison. Allison, can you answer Peter's question better than
Yeah,
I?
I'm not aware of any penalty like Peter's talking about. I've
Okay.
actually never heard of that. Yeah.
Just kind of another comment you had mentioned earlier, the per pupil's cost that we're for educating a student right now, I think you said is in the $15,000 range or $19,000 range. Just as a comparison, again, maybe late 1990s, early 2000s, when I was on the school committee, the cost to educate a pupil, I believe, was somewhere between $9,000 and $12,000. So, over that length of time, it's gone up. And lastly, I did kind of cut out when you were talking about Essex Aggie and those, the trade schools. I was in the trades. I was an electrician. I manage real estate now, and I will tell you, this country is so short of tradesmen. It's not even funny. I'm scared to think what we're going to be paying for plumbers and electricians 10, 15, 20 years from now, because what I hear from, electricians and plumbers that I work with every day is that there are no kids really doing it. Kids are we're sending them to college, and kids are not going into the trades. And because of it, there is a dire shortage of tradesmen out there. So,
Yeah, Peter is absolutely right. First of all, the first thing I want to do, Peter, that $19,000 number was Swampscott. In 2023, fiscal year 23, that's the 2022-23 school year, our audited number per pupil was $16,473.
And you're doing a great job.
Thank you. One of the other hats I wear is I was the chairman of the building committee for Somerville High School. Peter is dead on. Our technology kids are walking out of high school with the triple certification for Microsoft desktops and hardware, and they are walking into $70,000 to $80,000 a year jobs at 19 years old if they had that triple certification. And the real lack, Peter, is HVAC.
Yep.
There's nobody out there. I mean, have you called to get your heater fixed? So one of the things when we renovated Somerville High School, we built an HVAC unit. You're absolutely right, dead on.
Yeah.
Peter, one thing that that's somewhat heartening is there is a really good program called Jobs for the Future.
Yep.
And they are focusing on electricians and HVAC and pipe fitter, all of those really important jobs. So there is awareness at the national, and that program started here in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So there is definitely awareness of the upcoming desperate shortages and the importance of raising awareness and starting early and all of that kind of stuff. So you're not at all alone. This is something that it's just there are pipeline issues. It's all kinds of stuff, but there is awareness that this is a serious need.
Yep. I don't want to frighten anybody, but the average age of an employee in a nuclear power plant is 63 years old.
Somehow that's comforting.
It is.
And every time somebody wants to retire, Peter, they just say, we'll give you 50,000 more.
Exactly, exactly. They must be making loads of money.
So-
I guess finally to your point on the spray roof coating, I'm looking at one website right now, and it is a Carlisle roofing company. It's part of their umbrella. Carlisle is a very good name in roofing. So, I mean, I don't know. Do we take that? I guess that risk and do the 3 sprays over 15 years and get us an additional 15 years, or do we, Bob, and this is more for us to look at it and say, hey, listen, down the road, I don't know, we have some income that we may get from the Coast Guard property. Maybe we look at biting the bullet now and getting it done so that we have hopefully another 20 or 30 years of no problems with the roof.
Yeah, I tried to put the carrot out there, and the horse didn't bite it.
Yeah. That I think, Peter, you hit it right on the button. That's a town-wide, I mean, that's a number that requires a town decision and maybe even a special article.
Right.
And I'll say it one more time. There's no leaks. So
Right. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, I have no problem. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, if we got 5 more years out of it and we started to see some leaks, then you started your 3-5-year applications, we'd be looking at 20 years. I mean,
right.
So, and putting a new roof doesn't guarantee that you don't get leaks. It just guarantees that you have a warranty period for a year, at least a year, maybe a little longer, depending on what you negotiate.
More questions from anyone? No? All right. So, Tony, may I ask you to stay for just maybe another 10 minutes?
Certainly.
Okay. And we need to, I need a quick little bit of administrivia here from the rest of the committee. Barbara drafted something that was sent around by email. Would somebody like to make a motion and second it? And hopefully we can quickly get a unanimous vote in favor?
I'll make
a motion.
Nope. I'll second it.
All right. So, Barbara,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
Melanie,
Aye.
who else do we have? Tim,
Aye.
Joy,
Aye.
who did I miss? I don't think I
Peter.
missed any. Peter,
Aye.
Bob, aye. Okay, so Barbara, would you mind reading?
I don't have it up on my screen. So I'd like to read it, but do you have does anyone, do you have a copy?
I'd have to go back through email to
I
get
know,
it.
that's my problem.
Hold on a second.
Tony, this is a letter to you from all of us telling you, and we're going to find it, but telling you how much we appreciate all that you've done for the school, for education, for Nahant, for the town, and your expertise and your professionalism and all of the things. It has been a real honor for us to have you working for the town. And when we get the letter, and we'll be sending you a formal copy, and it'll be on letterhead. We're getting our letterhead fixed right now, so we can't give it to you until the letterhead is fixed. Classic, right? Technical. We got to get the letterhead fixed again. But and also one of the other, just working with you as a person. I mean, you have this both lovely, calm, reassuring manner, and you always have facts and factoids to back things up. But you also have a great sense of humor. And so it's just been a delight to work with you. And we wanted you to know that, and how much we appreciate also, here you are saying again, that you were able to find ways to give money back to the town, and your awareness of the importance of thinking about, efficiency and all of that, and long range planning. I mean, it's just been remarkable.
There you go.
Oh,
Betty, yeah, Barbara, I just sent it to you. If
Thank
you
you.
know,
Well, I think I probably just said it all.
yeah,
think I'm sharing. Am I sharing this?
Yeah,
yes, you are.
well, you are all so kind. And I was going to end by saying what a pleasure it's been to work with the finance committee and the town administration here in Nahant, who have the collective good of everyone. You know, the one thing I've noticed in Nahant, the pigeonholed interests are minimized, and that's a wonderful thing. But thank you. Oh, that's a lovely letter.
it was very easy to write. A real pleasure.
Well, thank you all so much. I'll cherish it.
You'll have it soon in hard copy when we get the letterhead fixed.
Wonderful. Thank you all.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. is
Thank
right.
you.
Okay, then let me stop sharing. Let's see. Approve minutes from last week. Again, we need a motion and a second.
I'll move to approve.
And I'll second heartily.
Discussion.
Sorry, where are they?
Dan sent us,
Yeah,
Them
Dan
to
sent
us.
them out.
And just by the way, this has nothing to do with the minutes, but Dan did text me and tell me he has been having connectivity problems, and that's why he has not joined us. So, all right. So, roll call vote. I'm doing this in Zoom ordered. So, Joy,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Melanie,
Hi.
Peter.
Abstain. I was not here.
Ah, good. Okay. So, Bob, unanimous vote in favor. Did I miss you?
You did, but that's okay.
Maybe I should just stop doing it in Zoom order because Zoom keeps moving people around.
Yeah.
Actually, we used to have Julie Tarmy would have it, and she would have a list and just read the list.
Yeah, but I'm not that well organized, or hadn't thought that far ahead.
Bob or someone, can you send me a copy of that? I never saw Dan's email,
I'll send it to you,
even though
Tim.
I voted to approve it. Thanks, Troy.
All right, so next on the agenda would be so administrative stuff. So next week is DPW. I remember. Yeah, so it's DPW, water and sewer, the various enterprise funds, sort of that it's an umbrella over everything that the Public Works Department does, and it does get split out into various places in the budget, but it's easier to discuss them all at least at one time, if not collectively. So that's next week's topic. And who is the liaison for that?
Me, I believe I'm one of them.
Okay.
The other one.
All right. And are you okay with that? Have you?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I have to probably set up time with Tony.
Yeah, or Zach.
Yeah. Tim, I just sent you the minutes. The reason that you didn't see them is because you weren't on the original email from Dan.
I'll be a member soon.
Oh, gosh. And Melanie, you're helping out Peter, I believe?
Yes, it's me and
Yes.
Peter for DPW.
The one problem that I have is I will be in Minnesota and in San Francisco next week, and I literally I land an hour before this meeting next Thursday, so I will not have time to meet unless Tony, we can get on the phone or something.
Whatever. Why don't you just call me tomorrow or
Okay.
shoot me your availability for next week, and
Okay.
we'll work around that.
All right.
And I did send Zach an email.
Yes.
Yeah.
Melanie has come to me. I kind of introduced her, at least via email, to Zach, and it sounds like you've made that contact.
Correct. I'm just waiting for his response.
Oh, okay. So I'll be talking to him tomorrow morning. So I'll have it. So do you want to coordinate with Peter's schedule too? Do you want to try and do
Yeah, if we
a
can
joint
go
call
for
or
it,
something?
yeah, if we can do a joint call, that's fine.
All right.
But may I suggest just proactively send each other either a list of blackout times or available times, so you've got that kind of in front of you at the start of the conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty much relegated to tomorrow. I'm traveling with my client, so it's not like I'm going to have any real free time. I don't know what your schedules look like in the morning, but I'm pretty open until noon.
That'll work for me. I'm open from 9 a.m. to 12 noon tomorrow.
Beautiful. So it's up to you, Tony.
Well, I can make it work after. I'm actually going to be at the school tomorrow morning. And then Tony P, what time are we done tomorrow morning reading?
I have no idea.
Oh, we're reading to the students tomorrow. I think I'll probably be done there around like 9.
Okay.
So I'll shoot Zach a text now and see if he has availability between 9 and 12 tomorrow.
Bob,
So just-
when you're finished with this, I have a quick question about library.
Okay. Are we finished with this?
I think so.
I think so. All right. Library?
Tony,
right.
Tony, you're done at 8:45.
Okay.
Isn't
So-
technology wonderful? Bob, did you want me to hang around?
No, I just wanted you around when we
Thank
got
you.
Oh, okay.
that was it.
All righty. Well, I'm going to say goodbye then. And thank you all for all your wonderful support.
Our
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Tony.
and all the best.
Thank you.
Yay. All right. Library?
Library. I know that Ann Spurn and Nori, our new librarian, Morgenstein, they had wanted to talk with you or with us briefly before they present. And I didn't have the list of when they're presenting. And so I copied you on that, but I promised them that I would mention it to you again tonight and
So
you
they-
would get back to them.
So do they want to chat with the entire committee or?
I think they copied you on the email. I could go try and find it. But they did want to have a chat before they do their final formal presentation.
Okay, we need to keep the open meeting law in the back of our head.
right. So what could they do? How would that work?
Like, I think as I understand it, we're okay as long as we don't have a quorum of the finance committee that meets with them.
Right.
Who's the
So
liaison? Who's the library liaison?
Good question.
there one?
Wait.
I know I was one year, but I don't think I am. I hope I'm not now.
I didn't even know there was one.
Yeah, I know one year I was, and I
No,
did.
yeah, we didn't list it separately, and I'm wondering does it fall under culture and recreation or general government?
Well, for 2 years, I was the liaison and I did meet with them separately. I went over to the library and I met and they would talk about budget and we would do all that kind of stuff in advance. But I don't think that didn't happen this year. And I
It
mean,
is under,
excuse me?
sorry, it is under culture and recreation in terms of the omnibus. It's in that section. But yes, I do remember in prior years that there was an individual liaison for library.
Yeah, I was.
And
So
I think it was Julie and Barbara, I think, right?
Yes. So I could just go over and meet with them. Maybe I
Yeah,
should do that.
That's fine, and if it's culture and recreation, it's supposed to be Peter and I, so I'm happy to join you.
I think we should do at least 2 people. We didn't, yeah, Julie and I did it together. So, and Peter's going to be away. So Bob, why don't we do it together?
Okay.
So we'll get back, I'll reply to them and we'll come up with some, and you and I can email about times that'll work. Good.
Okay, and right now, that is the week of what? March 25th. So the
Okay.
Thursday of the week is the 28th.
They're on for the 28th.
Yeah.
That's the same day that CPC is on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting because it will take a long time, don't you think?
I do think
Yeah.
that, yeah,
You should not double up on that day.
I
So
agree.
let's move it to the prior week, the 21st then.
Definitely.
And if for whatever reason, I mean, next week I'm gone, but I should be, I don't think I'm traveling the week of the 18th. So if you wanted to meet that week, I would be available instead of you
So the
doubling up,
21st
Barbara.
also has town government and culture and recreation.
Yeah, culture and recreation moves up a week.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to come with Bob. And if you we'll see about time if you want to, Peter, because I've met with him in the past for a couple of years in a row. And I think there's some benefit to sort of longevity and perspective, but not always. So whatever.
Yeah, so that's fine. So if you want to take the lead to coordinate it,
I will.
a little too sudden to just to for tomorrow, but at least early in the week, next week, I am around.
Yeah, I can't do tomorrow, but early in the next week, we'll find a time.
Okay, excellent. Let's see, anything else?
Hey, Bob, I sent you an email. I don't know if you got that.
If I did, I don't remember it. So
Okay.
should I go?
Yeah, I was just looking for some guidance on some stuff. I'm hoping to have an offline conversation.
All right. So first, let me take the step. I'll go back through my email and make sure I didn't miss it or it didn't go into junk, one or the other. And loop back.
Great, thank you.
Are you around early next week?
I'm flexible, yeah.
Okay. All right. And then Tony, is there anything on your side that you
For tonight, I just sent you guys an email earlier today with 2 budget adjustments. So I don't know if you have any questions about that. And then I also gave you a heads up on a few reserve fund transfers that we're gonna hopefully prepare for your next meeting. If you could add that, just to the agenda in a general way. I don't know if I'll have all 3 reserve funds ready to go. I think there was 3, so you might just write reserve, review and vote on reserve fund transfer requests on the agenda.
Yep. Yep.
And then I don't know if you had time to look at it. If you have any questions, I can go over those now, or we could just, reserve funds we could save till next week. But if you have any questions about those budget adjustments.
I have just one on the second one for Memorial Day, that additional $1,000. Are they renting or purchasing?
Rental.
All right.
There's a lot of, because it comes with, there's a lot of technical setup breakdown and then like during event operations. So it takes people.
Okay, so it's not just,
well.
All right. I was just kind of thinking, yeah, but that's fine.
And Tony, I noticed that, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna, one last comment on the sound system. I've been living here in Nahant since 1994 and met my wife who lived here and grew up here in 88. So I've been here a long time. And I will tell you that having a sound system at the town wharf for the Memorial Day, speeches and dedication that happens on the wharf was absolutely fantastic. Because for years I've been going, and unless you were literally on the wharf with all of those dignitaries, you didn't hear what was going on. And this past year was just fantastic. So this is $1,000 well spent. Okay,
Tony,
you
what
have
I
the
was
floor.
going to say is I totally agree. It was great. And I like the things you've been doing on the wharf more. You found ways to really bring the wharf, make it a community space and use it really nicely. Very much enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you.
I noticed in the memo that you sent us that some of those expenditures had to do with unforeseeable but new library costs, right?
Yes.
And so I will make sure that we have that if that comes up when we talk with the library. But those have been taken care of, right? The water heater, et cetera.
Yeah. Yes, but I don't have the invoice yet for them. But Nori has never gone through a reserve fund transfer request before. So
right.
I told her that I would initiate it and, help her go through that process. I'll say that we hired Scott Greaves as our custodian at the town hall. He also is the custodian for other departments and buildings as well. But by hiring him, he's a journeyman contractor. So when the issue with the wall occurred at the library a couple weeks ago, normally we'd have to outsource a contractor to do that work. We probably saved $10,000 by having a contractor on staff. He was able to, do that work, but there was some cost in staging, rental equipment, and materials, but it's minimal compared to if we would have had to hire out a contractor. So that has already proved itself beneficial.
Thank you.
Hey, Tony, on the 3 reserve fund transfers, I know that it's not on the agenda, but can we ask questions about them tonight, or do we have to wait?
It's
I'm looking at it and when I was reading through it, a couple of things pop into my head, and
I can answer them now and I can answer them next week too, if they
Yeah.
come up again.
Okay.
Okay.
So go ahead. If you want, I can answer 'em.
Yeah. So on the fire alarm system, the fire panel, did that get upgraded to an addressable system or anything like that? Like, or is it just a simple instant replacement for instant replacement?
It's just a simple replacement to the panel. The
Okay.
panel was, the alarm was sounding off on it. We thought it was a battery issue. We called instant alarm to come in. They were able to, fix it temporarily, but they said they basically just said it's completely aged itself out.
Right, right.
And they were like, we have it working right now, but it's not reliable and it needs to be reliable. So they said,
Absolutely. Okay.
so that's why I figured I'd add it as an unexpected, unforeseen cost. Otherwise, I would have tried to wait until next year to do it.
Right.
Next fiscal year.
And just a comment on number 3, as a resident of Emerald Road, and I know we've been essentially a war zone for the last 6 months. On behalf of my neighbors, I absolutely will thank you for the improvements. Yes, we've had to deal with, gas turned off and water and sewer and whatever. I'm really happy to see that they'll be replacing some of the water pipes. And I'm assuming I'm going to come off of the special water pipe that's in front of my house. But again, I just thank you for the diligence in all of this work. I know that when it's all said and done, we're going to have a nice paved street and everybody's going to be happy. I just, again, can't thank you enough for, I think the project has gone very smoothly.
Peter, if you could help me spread the word, I posted a neighborhood community meeting on the calendar for Tuesday night at 7. It's all
Okay.
through Zoom, and I'll do a code red tomorrow on that.
Okay.
Because it has been a war zone down there, and I feel bad that how much work's been going on, but I'm gonna host. Zach and I are gonna host like a community meeting for the neighborhood through Zoom on Tuesday night at 7 to just give them an update on what to expect with this last part of the project.
Okay. So we got the sheet that basically says what about the water over the neck, which is great because I'll be traveling, so it won't affect me. But just out of curiosity, is there? I know it's a little early for paving, but is there any like anticipated date for paving?
I think it would probably be best for us to wait until the spring, to be honest.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
You want to give all that trench work at least one winter of settling.
Yep, absolutely.
But that works out nice. We could get it planned this fall and then get construction going in the spring.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So this would be time for the public forum, but there's no members of the public here. So if there is nothing else, a motion to adjourn is in order.
No motion. We adjourn.
And Deborah seconds. I don't have my list even now, so
Okay, Bob.
Barbara,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Melanie,
Aye.
Joy.
Aye.
Deborah, I already asked you, right? Now suddenly
You
you're
did.
back at the end of the line here. And okay, so unanimous vote in favor. We are adjourned.
Peter,
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Here. All right, I've learned my lesson. So thank you,
All right.
everyone.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah. See you Thursday.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Peter and Melanie.
Yep.
Peter and Melanie, I'll do you guys want to do like 9:30 or 10 o'clock tomorrow morning?
Yep.
Sure.
And would you want to do that in person? Are you guys in town, or do you want to do a Zoom?
It's up to Melanie. I'm in town. I can certainly come up.
Yeah, I'm in town. You just have to tell me where to go.
Why don't you come to my office tomorrow, tomorrow morning, and we'll say 9:30.
Okay, you got it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. See you tomorrow morning.
All
You
right.
got it. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.